the model is not just a simple, viewing. It is the tool, and it is helping us bid things faster, bid things accurately, progress, understand challenges. So we use augmented reality for that to add in like what's running right now, and where does the model come in, where's the new design come in, so we can have kind of a seamless construction phase during a very busy hospital.
Just recently, we developed a new safety app. It's called BIM, which is like a pre-incident indicator. And so what that's doing is it's looking at 41 million data sets, and it can predict within 78% accuracy if there's an accident about to happen.
They'll open it up, they'll look at it, but they don't understand how to digest it. They don't want to admit that. So then we'll set up the glasses, we'll put them on their head, they're like, oh wow. They'll pivot what they're doing, things like that. It's just finding ways to be efficient and to build better and inform everybody with all the technology we have and making sure it gets in their hands and they have a way to use it. The first panel is going to be on BIM to field. So basically this topic is a roundtable discussion on the current state of using digital models in the field. What's working, what's not, and what's next. So if we want to have our panelists come up on stage, I can kind of introduce you guys up here if you guys want to join me. First we have Carla joining us, who's a BDC manager at Graham Construction. Carla has 18 years experience in the construction industry. With a background in surveying, scheduling, and estimating, she brings a practical, field-first approach to digital construction. Carla specializes in 3D modeling and visual planning tools that enhance coordination and communication across project teams. Currently, she supports industrial and infrastructure projects across Canada, helping teams bridge the gap between traditional construction methods and digital innovation to deliver smarter, more efficient project outcomes. Thank you, Carla. Next, we'll have Rich join us. Rich is a project superintendent at Hensel Phelps Construction. You may remember Rich from earlier on today. Bringing over 27 years of experience to the role. Throughout his tenure, he has successfully delivered projects across a diverse range of sectors, including healthcare, correctional facilities, higher education laboratories, and most recently, wastewater treatment plants. His leadership has contributed to the completion of nearly $1.5 billion in construction work. His passion for 3D modeling began in 2005 during the pioneering of a 100% design-build hospital project, UCI Medical Center, the first of its kind in Southern California. And I believe we have James as well, if you want to join us. Thank you, James. So James is the Director of Construction Technology at JTM Construction. James has 17 years of experience in the industry. With a background in carpentry, surveying, and technology, he has a problem-solving approach to construction. James uses tools like BIM, laser scanning, augmented reality, and software solutions to help team members visualize and navigate complex projects. James supports all projects at JTM to utilize the tools that they have to build better and more efficiently. Thank you, James. And just quickly on myself, I know everyone wants to hear mostly from the panelists today, and that's why they're all up here, but just on who I am. So my name's Justin, I come from BuildDots. Been with the company about a year and a half. We do have a booth if you want to check us out after this. And prior to that was a project manager working directly in the field. So thanks again for all the panelists for joining us here. And thanks for the transition from Aaron about being a 3D first company, as I think that's what we're all here to talk about today. So the first question kind of revolves directly around that. I think 2D drawings have long been the standard in construction. Obviously today we've seen a lot of cool things we can do with 3D, whether it's cmBuilder or other tools or just other types of solutions that you can really work with once you get into 3D. So the question really is, what changes are you seeing on your projects in terms of communicating the design information to the people building in the field? And if you could maybe give some examples such as 3D BIM, 2D drawings for layouts, and how it was better or worse than the more like traditional method in 2D that you've seen previously?
I'll start. So I go back to about 2012, 2014, and we were first getting our overhead coordination information, and we had a lot of challenges at getting it out in the field and couldn't figure out how to do it, and printing it wasn't working. So we started creating digital gang boxes, and so that was our big thing, and we got the first one out on site and had everybody, the trades were utilizing it. We even had Oshpod, the ACO, come up, and he was looking at the gang box and signing stuff off with it. So it was working really, really well. And then the iPad came along. And so all of the gang boxes are now in the back 40 of the project, collecting dust and never to be seen again. So.
Yeah, for me, background in surveying, on a day like today, I'd get a PDF, I'd put it in a Ziploc bag, I'd get a TXT file, and I'd go out with an HP 48 calculator to lay out points. And then we got like a waterproof data collector from Juniper Systems, but we still got the text file PDF. And getting that information in the field, working at a contract, we had a VDC person sitting there in the office, and they're creating all this content. It's like, well, why can't we have that? Why am I doing this in Civil 3D, exporting to a TXT file and taking a PDF out to the field? And we purchased tablets. Right? We have these tablets hooked up to the total station. Now we can bring in the entire model. We can lay out anything. Right? The PDF is still valuable. We still hand over a PDF sometimes to explain some things, but for the teams in the field, why wouldn't we take this coordinated information that's accurate, it's up to date, it's right, rather than taking a CAD file that hopefully it's up to date, hopefully they sent you the right one, because they named it the same thing, they haven't put versions on it. You know, some of the tools now automatically version, which is great, but you know, you get out there, you lay out 1,500 linear feet of curb, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's a revision, there's an ASI that changes all that. You're like, no, that's awesome, couple days work.
And I don't know, this is right.
What's the next?
And then for what I found for a couple years ago, we never got models, right? Clients didn't give it to the contractor because the contractor's gonna do something with it or change it, so we don't trust them. But now they're giving it to us, which is fabulous. So I'm able to take it, and software and hardware is getting better, where you can get it into the hands of the field. Before, it was a standalone computer on the site that was way in the corner that the guy had to go and turn on. It couldn't work, couldn't get power to it, couldn't get Wi-Fi. But now we have everything's on our phones, everything's at our fingertips. So at Graham, I'm able to actually get that 3D model onto an iPad, and it's actually going right to my foreman. So most of my time, I'm training foremen to start, crawling through them all.
I mean, it's great to see, and thinking about all these answers now, I think I might have to change my answer to Aaron's poll to a C. I've been converted a little bit with some of the information in Aaron, so no, it's great to see that the industry is heading in that direction with the 3D, and that's something that you guys are actually seeing in reality. Now, what is a common pushback that you guys receive when recommending use of digital data? I think someone here mentioned earlier that often, some people who are more forward-thinking have to be like salespeople within their own companies. So what are kind of some examples, of pushback that you guys are getting from people when you're trying to push the more 3D digital way of doing things?
I mean, we started out, we had the same issue with the architects. It took several years for us to finally get them on board. There was a lot of lawyers involved, a lot of time involved. There was a lot of disclosures and forms we had to fill out to say that we were going to sue each other. But finally after like 4 or 5 years, everybody got past that. I think more of the architects are now on board with it. They've gotten past all the legality of it, and we're moving forward. It's not nearly as big of a struggle as it was, for sure, for us.
I'll mention about those iPads at Graham. We had a Saskatchewan project. It's industrial, and they weren't going to give drawings. It was going to be digitized the whole way. The contractor was going to get the 3D model, and you build off the model. And this is a couple years ago, and it was really funny because I was sitting at the executive table. So I'm here with the executives who've been in the industry 35 years. And they said, how are you going to get them all into the hands? People are going to use iPads. They're going to take an iPad, and they're going to take it to the field, and they'll install it. And I got laughed out of the room. We never bid it. We literally did not bid this job because they're like, they could not see how to do that, right? And that was pushback from execs. But again, fast forward 2-3 years, and sure enough, they're running iPads on the iPad, like, installing things.
It's like that person that says they'll never use email ever.
Yeah, for me in sales, a lot of times it's just kind of playing personalities. You know what type of personality a lot of the superintendents are, right? Come from the field. You take someone young that's up and coming and you teach them. And a lot of times it'll spark something in the guys that have been around for a long time that built longer than you've been alive, that don't need it, that, you know, all of a sudden they're willing to adopt it because someone that they mentor is now accelerating their career right in front of them. And so all of a sudden they want to eat it up too because they see value in it. Rather than, you know, we've tried the forcing it, we've tried all these other things, but a lot of times it's just getting their pride, ego, all that involved in it, and saying, hey, you can do better, right? You don't have to be afraid of it. Sometimes it's just not wanting to admit that they don't know something in construction. I mean, that's their profession. And it's a lot of times just not knowing how to do it and giving them the opportunity to do it, see value in it.
Awesome, thanks so much. So now we've kind of touched a little bit on some of the challenges. I think everyone in this room is probably aware of what the challenges are. On a more like positive note, some successes you guys have seen. So what are some real successes, either a specific use case or something we've really seen putting these digital tools and digital way of thinking with 3D models in the hands of people that have really been a success?
Oh, all right. Apologies.
School project.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So sorry. We rehearsed this. I have a project manager, and he says the worst thing that ever happened in construction was emails, right? And then Teams and all this other stuff. And first project with him, working directly with him, I think we were like 3 days into the project, he said, you're out of budget. So what do you mean I'm out of budget? I put together a budget for the job, but we're 3 days in, you know, it's maybe I have 16 hours built. And he said, you're over budget, I moved money around, we need it elsewhere. And on that project, we just kept doing what they needed. We did what the project team needed, we supported the project team, because that's the only way I can measure success. Like, we could lay out everything right, we could model everything right, everything could be perfect, but if it's not built right, then what's the value in it? And so we jumped in and just kept doing, even though we were over budget, they kept finding more money to pay for it. And on the next job, you know, we put together our budget. It was a huge budget for us, $1.2 million for this job to support the team. And he sat me down, and I'm getting ready for this, you know, scheduled a meeting, not Teams, gotta go out to site. Sit down with him, and I'm expecting him to just trash this budget. And he goes, are you sure it's enough money? Did you need more? Right? We proved our value to him. We supported him. We made sure that he could go into meetings and have wins, right? Using data, using information that we collect from the field, and that we coordinated. He could go in and win an argument, win a battle, and now there's value to him, right? Now we're supporting him, and it was a huge win for him. Now he wants to support what we're doing. He wants us to be better. He wants us to have the tools we need to succeed.
For us, it's the usage of 3D model. I don't have a pretty number or dollar or the return on investment on our teams on using the model, but what I've seen in the last 3-4 years is who's using the model, and it's the superintendents, it's the coordinators, and it's the estimators. And we use, and what I've loved about it is Navisworks. You know, when models came to us, it used to be just we'll flip it open, we'll turn it around, and then we would close it. Now it's like, okay, hang on, I want to color code. Let's color code the model based off of fabrication. Or, you know, let's look at scheduling. Now let's look at estimating. Let's pull data from that. Like for Graham and most contractors now, the model is not just a simple, viewing. It is the tool, and it is helping us bid things faster, bid things accurately, progress, understand challenges, getting into cmBuilder and stopping time when you can't do that in the field. So I don't have the pretty number on the wins, but having those digital tools has been skyrocketed here.
Yeah, it's really great to hear, and I think everyone has spoken kind of the same sentiment towards the adoption, that it is really happening. It's not something that's really debatable anymore. It's just how much of the adoption we're going to drive. So
yeah, like we have one platform for 3D models, and it used to be a one-off. It was the same thing. Like it's optional. It was clicked optional box. And now if you have a model, it's mandatory. It's mandatory to go into that software, and teams are running with it. So
that's awesome. Do you want to? Okay. So now time. We did regress this, I swear. Time for the fun question now. I don't know if Sanjeev's still here or not, but on the AI question that's come up, as we said, 2 hours into this. So there are major cutting edge innovations, all around us. Not only in construction, we hear about them in our everyday lives. Specifically, AI is one of them. VR, XR, robotics on site. There's a lot of these futuristic things that are out there. The question is, where do you think this is all headed, and what do you think the actual impact is going to be on construction sites? And if you do think it's something that's coming, what can people in this room do to best prepare themselves for that future?
Yeah, so we're actually using AI quite a bit. Probably the biggest thing is with our proposals. So we have an AI-based company called Joist that goes and looks at and we have uploaded all of our previous proposals, and so we can go in there and go look at these last 3 healthcare proposals, and I want you to write me a section on safety, or I want you to write me a section on this. The biggest thing is that we're not recreating the wheel, right? So we're utilizing these proposals that we've created in the past. We get all the information, and you can run it in another AI and tone it down and get it to where you need it to be. So that's the biggest thing that we're using. Just recently, we developed a new safety app. It's called PII, which is like a pre-incident indicator. And so what that's doing is it's looking at 41 million data sets. And so those data sets are anything from our cards, our observations from our SAFE program. It looks at when people are coming to a job site or when people are leaving a job site. It looks at when people are going on vacation, or if there's a holiday. It looks at the weather. So it looks at a whole gamut of information, and it analyzes it, and it can predict within 78% accuracy if there's an accident about to happen. So it'll look 4 weeks ahead, and it'll give you the top 5 indicators of where, and it's basically telling you if you don't do anything in the next 4 weeks, you are going to have an accident in one of these 5 areas. So it's very, very powerful. Like I said, we just launched it in June of this year, and so we'll be excited to see how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a big buzzword, right? How can we use it? How can we best use it? Right? There's so many options out there. There's so many different tools. I mean, you're being constantly flooded by them. What's going to be the best value, right? And what we found is starting out small, right? What's the little wins that we can use it for? We don't need to have this whole team of bots running our entire system, making people obsolete. But with AI, it's where can we get more efficiency out of our workday? Where can we leverage the tool to be better? Virtual reality is a big one we've been really leaning on. We've started doing layout with virtual reality, augmented reality, virtual reality. But we found a company we really like. We're able to get the accuracies using control with our total stations to be a place where now we're not going to do grids with it, but rough layout, hardscape, footings, things like that. A lot faster than a total station out there staking out points. Just any tool we can use to make ourselves more efficient, get a better outcome, or visualize what we're going to build. Right? using that augmented reality for that. Allowing people to understand in 3D what they're in, not just on an iPad, which is still huge, but for them to actually put on the magic leaps and see what they're going to build, see issues with it, because some of them still don't want to open up the iPad. Right? Even though the tool's there, they'll open it up, they'll look at it, but they don't understand how to digest it, and they don't want to admit that. But then we'll set up the glasses, we'll put them on their head, and they're like, oh wow. You know, and they'll pivot what they're doing, things like that. You know, it's just finding ways to be efficient and to build better and inform everybody with all the technology we have and making sure it gets in their hands and they have a way to use it.
And for Graham, we have a hospital that we're doing, and it's a retrofit, so, you know, their operating rooms are still operating, and, you know, we're still doing construction on the other side, so we use augmented reality for that to add in, like, what's running right now, and where does the model come in, like, where's the new design come in, so we can have kind of a seamless construction phase during a very busy hospital. One thing you kind of mentioned, the question was like, you know, what do you do now? How do you keep ahead of the curve, and how do you know, what does that look like? And I know there's some salespeople in here, and so if I haven't returned your email, it's not that I'm not interested, but we also just got it. So I think for that is be curious, understand that we're theirs, but are you solving a problem? I don't think you're not going to get interest from your crew or from your people unless you're solving a problem for them. So I found like lots of careers and lots of successes I've found was understanding what the field, what the problems they're facing. So when someone comes up to me and says, hey, you know, show me something fancy. Well, hang on, what's your problem? But give me a problem and let me see what digital strategy we have in our toolbox so we can help you find that solution.
So I go back to that hospital that he was talking about back in 2005, the first 100% design build. We spent $150,000 on in place, well not in place, but in a warehouse mock-ups. So we did an OR, we did a patient room, we did several rooms so that the nurses and the doctors could come in and test out the space to make sure everything was where it was at. They could put 3 people on either side of the bed in a code situation. So we spent a lot of money. And then fast forward, AR comes around, right? Oh great, let's put on these goggles, we're gonna bring all the nurses, we're gonna bring all the doctors in, we're gonna have them walk around the OR, we're gonna have them walk around the patient room and see how everything looks. And they couldn't see it. They couldn't figure it out. They needed to be able to stand next to the other doctors and be able to touch the patient in the bed and touch the head wall and figure out where the vacuum was at. And so AR is great, but it's not the end-all solution. So now instead of spending $150,000, we're now making cardboard patient rooms with a cardboard bed and a cardboard head wall, and basically they'll attach the vacuums and all the things. The nurses and doctors, they need to be able to stand in that room and figure out spatially everybody else next to them and be able to go, okay, this is here, and they physically couldn't do it in AR, and they certainly could not do it on a 2D drawing, so.
And jumping in on what Carlos said, it's, go out to the field and find out what the problems are. Right? I was on site when we first got cmBuilder. We had a superintendent that built a tiny little site out of cardboard, and super proud of it, 3D site logistics plan. And I spent some time with him. I said, hey, look what we have. You can do this on a computer. How much time did you spend building this cardboard, printing out drawings, cutting them out, glue stick, putting them in there so you can see the shoring? I mean, it was cool, but you can do it so much faster and so much more detail and have it go through different milestones, right? So again, just finding out what their problem is, spending time with the field.
We print those in 3D now.
Yeah.
With our 3D
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Cardboard still works. I guess.
Well, awesome. Whether the future is AI or it's cardboard, I think the jury's still out on that. But,
definitely cardboard.
we do have some time for some Q&A, so I know there's probably lots of questions in the audience. I'd love to see some questions, so look for some hands, and I'll bring over a mic to you if you want to be brave enough to raise your hand.
Thank you. Richard, this question's for you. I think that's, particularly around the PII thing, I think that's really innovative. And with safety being paramount and construction being such a dangerous industry, I'm wondering if we could learn a bit more, if you could elaborate a bit on what are some of the observations that you guys are actually correlating with AI, and what are some of the corrective actions that you guys are taking to make sure that you can start preventing injuries?
Yeah, so that's our SAFE program. Everybody on the job site, all the way up from the project manager all the way down to the field engineers, they're required to go perform a certain number of observations. So safety is not just our safety engineer's responsibility, it's everybody's responsibility on the project. So everybody is required to go out and walk the field once a week, and they'll do anywhere from 5 to 10 observations depending on the value of the project. And observations like somebody's not wearing their hard hat, or the delivery guy shows up in a pair of shorts. So the process is to go up and stop the person and have a conversation with them and ask them what they were doing wrong, and is there a better way to do this, or hey, I know you're the delivery guy, but I need you to stay in the truck. I can't have you walking around out here. So it's making observations like that if people are using a ladder incorrectly. So all of that information, that all goes into our SAFE program. And so this AI app is looking at that SAFE observation, okay, looking at all those as a data set. It's looking at, was there a holiday? Because history has shown us that accidents occur the day before a holiday and the day after a holiday, because everybody's mind is the day before, it's on what they're gonna go do that weekend. And then when they come back, it's what they did that past weekend. So they're really not in the game. So we have the safety talk after every holiday and say, hey, make sure your head's in the game. If somebody's new to a job site, that's definitely an indicator. History has shown that there's people get hurt on their first week, their first month out there because they don't know what's happening on that site. So it's all of that information that AI is looking at all of that, and then giving us the top 5 indicators of if you don't do something, if you don't start writing more safeguards, if you don't make a talk or do something, an accident is anything.
Awesome. I think we have time for maybe a few more questions. Yep.
James and Claudia, you both mentioned augmented reality, but James, maybe specifically, you talked about layout with augmented reality, kind of alluded to it. Would you be able to give a little more details on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we found is using tags, QR codes, right, and pulling a coordinate from the model, being able to lay that out to field the total station, using the Magic Leaps with Argyle's platform we use. We're able to constrain that pretty tightly to the control, and from there, once it's constrained to control, you're able to actually see pretty accurately. Don't get me wrong, we back checked the total stations, did things like that. Tried it in the office where we literally just set this, I believe it was a fountain or a bench in our little workspace, and we just put tape on the ground, laid it out, then we reloaded it. We want to see how much drift. We spent a bunch of time making sure we're not going to go and lay out columns with it, or a core, or anything critical. The footings, if they're off by an inch, it's not going to hurt anything, as long as the rebar is where it needs to be, right? We're going to use grids for that, things like that. If they need to dig it, we're going to lay it out quick. Benches, things like that, hardscape, it's worked really well for the team to be able to see it, and a lot of times how you see it, right, it's going to change, and so they'll get right over the top of it, hit it with a laser pointer, and someone makes a mark, and they move on to the next one. We've done it on ceilings where you look up, you can see it. The more you move around, the more drift you're going to have, so really it comes down to control and having enough control, QR codes for it to pick them up, be able to constrain it, and not just go running around blocking cameras, things like that, where you're going to cause more drift and error.
More questions?
So we talked about AR, VR, I guess enhancing the mobility and connect people, right, regardless of distance. But construction is still very much like a people business where we, it means a lot to be in person and to hear and then to feel the other side. Just picking your brains here, like how do we find a balance between, using technology to be able to support remotely and in person?
I think it's really a hands-on approach with the team members, right? Being on site, making your staff by, seeing what their problems are, and using tools to solve those problems. Because at the end of the day, they're still gonna have to build it, right? But putting an emphasis on having a dialogue and a relationship with the people that are building it, right? If they're not building anything, then if we're in VDC technology, things like, we're not gonna have a job if they're not actually out building stuff, right? We could go and do something else without a doubt, but if a project's not being built, what are we doing? Right, maybe you have some proposals, some pursuits, but that's why we're here, is construction funds us to be able to support. So spending the time with the people that are out there building, that have the pain points, that struggle, right? And us coming at it objectively, because we're not in that, right? Sometimes when I get insight from people, they're like, well, why don't you just do this? And it's like, you don't know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you don't do my job. 5 minutes later, I'm like, wow, they were really right. It's an objective look in, right? So sometimes being able to support and be there, and seeing what they're doing, shadowing them, spending a day with them, and understanding what their challenges are, whether it's in, something as simple as, I hate entering my time in this stupid system, I have to go set up my computer. Oh, you can do an app. Like, you can do it from your cell phone out in the field. Rather than taking photos, going back to the office, uploading them to your computer, and do it in the field, right? With your safety app. Whatever it is, right? Hating to carry around a whole set of 11 by 17 drawings. Well, here's an iPad. Little things, but building a relationship with them so they know who you are, they know you're there to support, right? You're not a separate entity, you're there for support. Essentially, we're a sub to our own company, right? And sometimes we're treated that way, but when we get collaborative and we put them first, like, hey, we're here to service, make sure that you're successful. That's how we measure our success, is your success. So how can we help you? Right? Sometimes it's the most tedious little thing, or it's like, wow, we have all this amazing stuff. Why do you want it to be? Well, maybe that's just what they need, So we just create it and send it to them. There's a better way to do it, but maybe right now it's not the right time to stand my ground and pick this hill to die on. Maybe it's time to say, yeah, here you go. And once they get their problem solved, you say, hey, why don't you take a look at this? This might be better next time.
For myself, I'm like a little bit short here, but I do go to sites. I have to go dust off my boots to go get them to get on the site. And it's funny when I walk on site, because I have my iPad and my computer and like my mom, and it's funny because I'll sit with that superintendent that hates his computer, that can't find his mouse, and walk him through, okay, like, show what are you looking for? Where are you gonna put your crane? Well, I'm gonna put my crane here. Okay, well, hey, let's put it. And walk, just not hold the hand, but like really sit with them and just hear their stories, hear, what their struggles is. For me, I always like to say, what's your clicks? How many clicks do you have to do today? Because if I can take 5 clicks away, that's 5 clicks that you don't have to find your mouse, right? So just find that.
Hey guys, so cmBuilder is really great for pursuits. We all know it's working well for that, but if you have a project that's taken over the cmBuilder model, that they've taken it on, they're in control of it, using it, what are some of the, say, success stories from a project using cmBuilder? What are they doing that's helping them, and how's it helping them? And then what are some ways that it could be improved, or some direction you'd like to see cmBuilder go to be more useful in the future?
So I'll just answer quickly on for Graham. That screen, I forget who had it, and it had like 52 scenarios. That's essentially, we have our proposal, and then we'll create scenarios. So cmBuilder, if we can get like subfolders maybe, like something where I can organize those scenarios. So if John, Pete, and Frank all have different scenarios on which area, let's kind of organize that a little bit so that when we go from pursuit and going into construction and to update that, because not only you usually get updated models, so you're going through all of the models that were already updated at bid phase and regenerating everything. So yeah, a little bit of organization there does help a lot.
Scenario?
Yes. Not actually.
For us, we just recently have a project, and they said, okay, well, we got a 2-lane road, we have to realign before we can actually start the project. And with the regrading and everything, it was gonna be, essentially we had to keep the road open, so we're gonna have to go down to 1 lane, but we're gonna have like a 26-inch drop from 1 lane to the other with the regrade. And it's a tiny 2-lane road, how do you delineate that safely? And so the superintendent drew it up, blue beam, color coded it, it looked really nice, and we took that, put it in cmBuilder. We were able to show what would happen if a tire drops off that, because someone, drifts over a little bit. Now we're gonna be able to close the road, right? They weren't gonna let us close this road, which, it's not arterial, I don't know why we couldn't close it. But the city was able to see, as we're building out this project and things are changing, they're able to see that, wow, okay, this is creating a huge hazard. So, it continues to provide value, whether it's with the city or saying, hey, this is why it's complex. This is why we need time, this is why we need this, it's because you changed this, it adjusted that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that just wraps it up. So,